Welcome to Ouch. Was that a ghost? This podcast may contain graphic material, which some listeners may find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised.
Help me.
Now that we covered that, here's your host, Liz.
Welcome back to Ouch, Was That a Ghost? For part 2 of H.H. Holmes. We left off when Julia let Holmes know that she was carrying his child. And she told him that he had to marry her now. And Holmes was like, sure. We can get married. Let me just give you a quick abortion. And she was like, okay. And that was the last she was heard from. Her and her daughter Pearl disappeared around Christmas, 1891. And a few days later, a college purchased an articulated skeleton from Holmes. Some say that these were his first murders, but I don't know if I believe that. In 1892, Emmeline Segrand was hired to be Holmes' secretary. She worked 6 months for him, and the two carried on an affair, and then she just disappeared. Her articulated skeleton was sold to a medical school nearby. Authorities theorized that maybe she got pregnant because Holmes didn't seem to be the best dad. He already was married twice, 2 kids that he never saw. And then Holmes sent Emmeline Segrand's empty luggage to her mother, to Emmeline's mother. Like, why? I don't understand what that move was all about. He seems to have a very inflated ego. Maybe it was just like a haha moment. I don't quite understand. I don't understand a lot with this guy. So now we're in 1893. Holmes hires a personal stenographer named Wilhelmina, or Minnie, as she was called, Williams. Minnie was a railroad heiress who happened to own a very valuable property in Fort Worth, Texas. So, of course, Holmes starts sweet-talking her and proposed not long after. And somehow Holmes convinced her to give him large sums of money and to sign the property deed over to him. And of course, Holmes can't just transfer the deed to him. He's using aliases, go to this person, that person, just always scheming. He's always up to something. In May of 1893, Holmes rented a place in Chicago's Lincoln Park for Minnie and himself. He presented himself and Minnie as a married couple, but remember, sir, you already have 2 wives. A few months later, Minnie's sister was to arrive for a visit. She also happened to be an heiress. Holmes convinced her to sign over all of her wealth, and then she just vanished. Not long after, Minnie vanished as well. In Minnie's things, Holmes found an insurance policy from Minnie's brother, and Minnie was the beneficiary. So this sicko went to Chicago, where Minnie's brother was, and somehow Minnie's brother was shot and killed, and Holmes forged Minnie's signature and collected on Minnie's brother's life insurance policy. There are different versions of how this went down, but in any version, all 3 siblings died or disappeared. 1893, May 1st, the Columbian Exposition opens, honoring the 400th anniversary of Columbus discovering, he did not discover it, discovering the New World, or the Chicago's World Fair. Millions came. Over 27 million people came over a 6-month period. Some people came to see all the marvels, the Ferris wheel. It held over 2,000 passengers and was 264 feet tall. Like, that's crazy. I would not go on the first Ferris wheel. Electricity was being shown the first time in the United States, where President Cleveland pressed a button showing the Westinghouse alternating currents, which if you haven't listened to the electric chair episode, you should. You can know about getting Westinghouse, son. Of course, Westinghouse and Edison are still arguing. I could do a whole episode just on the fair and how cool it was. Pabst Blue Ribbon Beer, Cracker Jacks, Juicy Fruit, Peanut Butter, Brownies all made their debut there. There were life-size replicas of Columbus's ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. They had the first moving walkway, which I envisioned to go very slow. They had the first commercial movie theater, the moving pictures. I can never say this word, but it's the I can't say this word. Zoopraxiscope. It was basically like a little flip book but it was drawn in a circle and put on a projecting device. So it was really like that. I don't know if you ever had that little red thing you put in front of your face when you were a child and you flip through to see the different animals. It was basically this, but on a projecting device. It had a fully electric kitchen. And of course, the belly dance, known as the Hoochie Coochie, was introduced to the Americans. Helen Keller was there with Anne Sullivan, as well as Alexander Graham Bell. It was just a crazy fair. Name it and it had it. And all these people coming to visit needed a place to stay. And hey, guess what? Holmes had rooms, and he placed ads in the newspapers. He would also walk around the fair telling people about his rooms that he had for rent. And he would use Benjamin Pitezel's children, I guess, to disarm the people, to be like, oh, I'm walking around with kids, so I'm safe. He was forever the charmer. So, people were happy to find a place to stay. I'm sure a lot of the hotels were booked up. Holmes did have one stipulation for his hotel employees, guests, even his fiancés and wives. They were required to have life insurance policies. And Holmes, being such a kind gentleman, would pay the premium as long as they listed him as the beneficiary. This made it a lot easier for Holmes to collect if the person disappeared. In 1893, the fair was ending, so Holmes needed another scheme. He had 4 policies for fire insurance for his castle, or the hotel, totaling $25,000. And oddly enough, the 3rd floor of his castle caught fire. But guess what? He had policies for that. And the insurance company saw that there was only damage to the 3rd floor, which did have a lot of fire damage, but the rest of the building was fine. And they quickly thought it looked like arson, and they weren't going to go for his bullshit this time, so they refused to pay. And they would rather bring Holmes to court, suspecting fraud. But as Holmes always does, when he feels the heat, he just takes off. He had creditors coming after him, the fire insurance policy failed, and people were just talking. Word was getting around about the missing people. And the World's Fair had ended, so Chicago's economy was kind of heading towards a slump anyways. So Holmes just abandoned the castle, but he still needed a love life, so he married Georgina Yoke in January 1894. Remember, he's still married to Clara Murda and maybe Minnie. So in July 1894, Holmes, Pitezel, and Georgina Yoke, his new wife, boarded a train, left Chicago, heading towards Texas. And along the way, he focused on insurance scams, committing random murders along the way. Holmes and his right-hand man, Pitezel, were first seen in Fort Worth, Texas. If you remember, that's where Minnie had a large property that was signed over to Holmes. Pitezel and Holmes were seen in the town under a few aliases, and again, they were running all different kinds of cons and insurance fraud. The two started running one that said that they were building a hotel there. I'm sure Holmes up to his old stuff, buy it on credit, pay it never. But people were catching on to the bullshit they were pulling. And luckily that got stopped. I can only speculate, but it sounds like he wanted to recreate a second castle to torture and kill people in. I mean, this guy seems very intelligent. If he used all of this for good, he would have been so successful. During this time, Holmes started to steal horses from Texas and ship them to St. Louis, selling them, making a fortune. But you don't mess with horses in Texas, so he was arrested for this scheme and sent to jail for the first time. While he was incarcerated, he met an outlaw who was also incarcerated named Marion Columbus Hedgepath, or, as he was more commonly known, the Handsome Bandit. He was a handsome guy. Hedgepath was serving a 25-year sentence. Holmes struck up a conversation with Hedgepath and told him about how he came up with a great insurance scam. He was going to take out a policy on himself and fake his death and collect the money. He just needed a lawyer that was willing to help him, one that was not on the up and up. So Hedgepath gave him a referral, and they agreed that in return, Holmes would send Hedgepath $500 when he did the scam. Holmes got bailed out by his new wife, Georgina Yoke, wife number 3 or 4. I'm sure he was spitting some dumbass excuse to her as the reason for his arrest. So Holmes tried to fake his own death. He set up the policy. He brought a corpse to a Rhode Island beach and set it on fire and just walked away, letting someone else find it. Then this jackass shaved his... He shaved and altered his appearance. I'm not sure what that entails. Maybe he changed his clothes or put on sunglasses. And then he registered under an alias. When he heard the body was found, he identified the body and tried to get his check, but the insurance company had more questions. So he was like, oh, never mind. like with anything, if anything seems like a hassle, he just aborts it. So he's like, okay, plan B. He pivoted and he made a plan for Pitezel to be the person to fake his death. Pitezel was drinking a lot and he knew a lot about Holmes' misdeeds. And Holmes knew that he would pretty much do whatever he asked. So Holmes was like, hey, why don't you take out a big life insurance policy in Philadelphia and put your wife's name on as the beneficiary? We can fake your death, stage a body, and split the $10,000. And Pitezel needed the money because he has a bunch of kids and he likes to drink. So he was like, sure, sounds like a plan. Carrie Pitezel, his wife, knew about the plan. She didn't like it, but she reluctantly agreed. The men traveled to Philadelphia to start the con. Pitezel, or his new alias, B.F. Perry, sold himself as an inventor who sold patents. So they got him a little place to rent at 1316 Callaway Street. The plan was to find a cadaver, stage an explosion, and he would have Pitezel drink something that would knock him out and put makeup on him so he looked like he was burnt, and then have some witnesses see this, and then he would switch Pitezel out for the corpse. On September 4th, the explosion happened, as planned, and the burnt body was witnessed by a third party, but Holmes had pivoted. He chloroformed Pitezel and lit Pitezel on fire. It did still appear to be an accidental death, but they needed a family member to come and identify the body before they would pay out. So Holmes convinced Carrie, the unknowing widow, that Pitezel was just fine and he was just laying low, but he needed a member of her family to come with him to identify the body in order to collect the insurance money. So Carrie agreed to allow him to bring Alice, who was, I've seen different, either 13 or 15 at the time, to identify the body that was, in Carrie's eyes, somebody else, but it was actually Alice's father's corpse. See what I mean? This guy is so confusing. So Holmes left with Alice to go have her identify her thought to be father, but her real father. And then Holmes came back to Carrie saying, oh, Alice is fine. She's with her father. Let me take your other two children to travel with me because it's easier. You know, you should take off for a bit and I'll take the two kids. They won't be looking for you with, less kids. They think you have 5 children. And Carrie was like, sure. So now Holmes had Alice, 9-year-old Nellie, and 7-year-old Howard. So the crooked lawyer, Howe, collected the insurance payout, took his cut, and then, a part of it was supposed to go to Carrie. But according to Carrie's testimony, she only received $500 out of a $10,000 payout. He's always just scheming, like, oh, I need this for that. I need this for that. So as the kids traveled with Holmes, Alice would write letters to her mother and give them to Holmes to mail however they mailed back then. Carrie also started traveling around for a bit at Holmes' advice that she should go to where her husband is. Holmes would guide her where to go. The whole time, she's thinking her husband is alive and well, and at a point in the travels, Carrie and her children were only 4 blocks away from each other. He had her going everywhere. He was like, he told Carrie, go to Detroit, stay in this place. I registered you under an alias. Your husband still has some heat on him. He's trying to lay low. And then he sent her to Canada, to New York, to Vermont, always with a new excuse. Cunning Holmes thought he thought of everything, but he forgot one thing. He never paid his cellmate the referral fee for Attorney Howe. And the handsome bandit was pissed about this. So in exchange for a shorter sentence of 14 years instead of the 25, the handsome bandit told the warden and the life insurance company about Holmes' plan. The Pinkertons, who were already tracking Holmes for Fidelity Mutual Insurance back in Philadelphia, apprehended Holmes on November 17, 1894, in Boston, Massachusetts, on an outstanding warrant for horse theft from the time he was back in Texas. Holmes was extradited to Philadelphia prison and charged with conspiracy to defraud the insurance company. And the question became, where are the 3 Pitezel children that he was traveling with? Detective Badass George Geyer of Philadelphia PD was assigned the case in June 1894 to figure out the deal with Holmes and find the 3 Pitezel children. And he did just that for months. He traced Holmes' route until, in Toronto, he located the deceased girls, buried in the cellar of a house. Holmes would later confess to forcing the girls into a trunk, locking them in, then cutting a hole in the trunk, and feeding a tube attached to gas into the trunk, asphyxiating the 2 children before burying them in a shallow basement grave. While in Toronto, Detective Badass found the letters that Alice had written to their mother that Holmes never mailed and he kept for some reason. Well, I guess luckily. But this helped decipher where they had traveled. Because in the letters Alice wrote, she'd be like, oh, we're going through Chicago, we're going through wherever. With this information, Detective Badass went to Indianapolis to a house Holmes had rented In the fireplace, he found the charred skeletal remains and teeth of the Pitezel boy that Holmes had cut up before burning. While in jail, Holmes was like, "Oh, me? I just defrauded insurance companies with cadavers." But his story constantly changed. In July of 1895, the Inglewood Castle was finally searched. Chicago PD found the maze-like layout in the House of Horrors. The 35 windowless rooms, the trap doors, the staircase that opened to the back alley that just had a steep drop, and just a strange layout, secret passages, dead ends, and in the basement they found the dissection table, bloodstained, hits of quicklime, surgical equipment, torture devices including a stretching machine, and inside the vault where it was said that he would seal people, it had scratch marks on the inside of the door and shoe prints. And this, of course, all over the paper, people were contacting the police looking for their missing relatives that went to the World's Fair but were never heard of again. But he was so good at getting rid of bodies, so who knows how many victims are unknown. But again, it's hard to know how much is exaggerated, but it said ashes in the crematorium were found, human bone pieces, including a pelvic bone of what was thought to be Pearl, Julia's daughter. They found what appeared to be bloody pieces of clothing from Julia. In the acid vat, skulls and rib pieces were found, as well as other skeletal pieces in the quicklime pits. Burnt clothing thought to be that of Minnie Williams. There was some human female hair found in the fireplace, along with a bank book of a woman named Lucy Burbank. And although these things are very damning, it would be hard to get a conviction on bits and pieces, so the authorities decided it would be best to try to get a conviction on Holmes for the murder of Benjamin Pitezel. While he was being held awaiting trial, Holmes wrote a memoir, Holmes' own story, an excerpt being, quote, "I could not help the fact that I was a murderer, no more than a poet can help the inspiration to sing." The murder trial began in October 1895. During the trial, it was brought up that Pitezel died from chloroform poisoning, and Holmes was like, yes, but he did it to himself through a tube. Experts disputed this, saying chloroform never made it to his stomach lining, so he was dead before it was ingested. Holmes was found guilty of murdering Benjamin Pitezel and was sentenced to hang. And throughout the trial, it was clear that he also murdered Pitezel's 3 children. After his conviction, he confessed to 27 murders, and he was actually paid $7,500 for his confession to a newspaper. But there's so much bullshit and lies sprinkled in. It's impossible to separate his story from the truth. May 7th, 1896, Herman Mudgett was hanged at Moyamensing Prison. It was said that he was calm and collected. His neck didn't break, and he flopped around for like 15 minutes before he was pronounced dead. H.H. Holmes had one request before he was hung. He wanted to be buried in a slab of concrete to not allow anyone to desecrate his grave. Like, bro, that's ironic. They complied, and his coffin was buried, contained in concrete. He also requested that his body not be autopsied. Shortly after, one of the caretakers at the castle named Patrick Quinlan took his own life in his bedroom with strychnine. After his family claimed that he had been hallucinating and had been, quote, haunted for months, he was found with a note that read, quote, "I couldn't sleep." So who knows how much Patrick knew or was involved in. Everyone was fascinated with the castle. Some even talked about buying it and making it into an attraction. But mysteriously, it burnt down late in 1895. Although no one was ever charged, it's said that 2 men were seen going in and about 30 minutes later running away as the castle went up in flames. May have been a victim's family member, but what do I know? By the time of Holmes' execution in 1896, he had been a bigamist, a swindler, a murderer, committed forgery, fraud, and of course, horse theft, but the full extent of what he did will never be known. And it's never known how much was exaggerated. In 2017, on a show called American Ripper, Jeff Mudgett, who is the great-grandson of Herman Webster Mudgett, H.H. Holmes, tried to get some answers. I highly recommend watching it. It's a very interesting docuseries. So newspapers at the time of H.H. Holmes' execution published in so many words that he may have pulled off one last con by escaping hanging, by having someone else go to the gallows in his place. And Jeff Mudgett, his great-great-grandson, in this docuseries tried to search for the truth. So he petitioned the court to exhume the body to see if there was a body there and if that body was in fact a relative of his, so that he wanted to compare DNA samples of his own as he was said to be a relative. The University of Pennsylvania had archaeologists perform the exhumation, and as they dug down, they first found a decoy pine casket, which is very strange. And as they went further down, they found a cement sarcophagus. As they opened over 100-year-old cement casing, inside they did find a body. Mudgett said, quote, "Chills went up and down my spine to see that skeleton in the skull with the brain still inside, which is a phenomenon that scientists have not yet explained. Scared the heck out of me," Mudgett said. DNA testing did come back as a conclusive link, so it most likely was Herman buried there. That ended one mystery, but Mudgett still wanted to know if he was Jack the Ripper. He said, quote, "There are too many coincidences for this just to be another bogus theory. I know that the evidence is out there to prove my theory, and I'm not going to give up until I find it." But again, I'd watch this show because he goes down checking boat logs and trying to see if the times line up. I don't want to give away too much, but it is a really, really good watch. The site of the building of the castle is now a post office, the Inglewood branch. And like I said, Holmes confessed to 27 murders, but some of those that he confessed to were still alive at the time. Some say that 9 can be attributed to him, while others say hundreds. So how many people he murdered, we'll never know. And so much of the story is questionable between his lies, the media at the time, publishing rumor as fact. I mean, I get it, that's what sells papers, but because of the yellow journalism and his lies, we'll never be able to fully decipher the depravity this man caused. I mean, by the account of the master manipulator, he was innocent, then okay, I did it, then I was possessed by Satan, and then false confessions, which sometimes years would pass until they knew the person he claimed to have murdered was still alive. I'll end on a quote by Holmes in one of his nonsense writing. Quote, "I was born with the devil in me. I could not help the fact that I was a murderer." Well, thank you everybody for listening, and I hope I included everything in a semi-chronological order because this was a very convoluted case. And anyone that hasn't gone over to Patreon, go sign up. It's free. They have paid tiers, which offer more content, but even at the free tier, I offer extra episodes, extra content. Well, thank you everyone for listening. Bye.
Thank you for listening. If you need more content or just want to help support the podcast, head on over to patreon.com and search "Ouch, was that a ghost?" If you need some snazzy merch, you can find it at crowdmade.com by searching "Ouch, was that a ghost?" If you have a story you'd like to share, you can email it to ouchwasthataghost@yahoo.com. You can also find us on Facebook and all the other social media platforms under "Ouch, was that a ghost?"
Help me.
All links can also be found on ouchwasthataghost.com.